This episode is brought to you by Amazon Prime. From streaming to shopping, Prime helps you get more out of your passions. So whether you're a fan of true crime or prefer a nail-biting novel from time to time, with services like Prime Video, Amazon Music, and fast free delivery, Prime makes it easy to get more out of whatever you're into or getting into. Visit Amazon.com/Prime to learn more.
At Chipotle, we also have a playlist. Guacamole as it's being hand mashed. The sizzle of adobo chicken on the grill. The chopping of onions and cilantro. We call our playlist Real. Order now. Chipotle. For real.
Hellmann's believes they can turn any mayo hater into a lover. So, if you know someone who thinks mayo equals bland, show their taste buds the truth and challenge them to try Hellmann's flavored mayo. With irresistible flavors like Hellmann's spicy mayo, garlic aioli, chipotle, and Italian herb, they'll be eating their words. Challenge haters to try Hellmann's flavored mayo and get them to eat their words. Learn more at hellmanns.com/eatyourwords.
The Twisted Tale of Amanda Knox is on Hulu. In 2007, Amanda Knox was studying abroad in Italy. She had no idea her dream would turn into a nightmare. Inspired by the actual events of her wrongful conviction and 15-year fight for freedom, watch the new Hulu original series, The Twisted Tale of Amanda Knox. Now streaming on Hulu and Hulu on Disney Plus for bundle subscribers. Terms apply.
Come meet me at the Musial with Alan and Daniel. We'll talk about the Cardinals all night long. Everyone come gather round, listen to your favorite sound. We'll talk about the Cardinals all night long. We'll talk the games and all the rest, about the team that we love best. We'll talk about the Cardinals all night long. We're gonna talk about the Cardinals all night long.
Good morning and welcome into another edition of Meet Me at Musial. I'm your host, Daniel Shoptaw at C70. With me as always, Alan Medlock, A Medlock 1, coming to you Saturday morning after the Cardinals have been beaten by the Tampa Bay Rays on this rare Saturday off day. You get us as well as the Cardinals off day, guys. Alan, I know I look at my weather forecast and I'm sure the same for you. Fall, at least a taste of fall is coming this week, but it's still a little bit of the dog days of summer when you're watching this team.
Yeah, without a doubt. And I can't believe we didn't bring this up beforehand. The worst development of the week in the season is the Saturday off day. I was like, what? I looked at the schedule initially and thought, where is the mistake on this? And clearly there's not one. So, I'm sure there's a reason. I probably haven't heard it. I don't know, but there's some things in baseball that just shouldn't happen.
Well, and this is not the way the schedule was designed.
Yeah.
This year. It was supposed to be a Friday, Saturday, Sunday series, but when the NFL, in all of its wisdom, put a Tampa Bay preseason game on Saturday, and the two the football stadium and the baseball stadium share a parking lot.
A la Kansas City.
Yeah, but there's no way it could handle it. So they moved this one. They also shifted a game against the Red Sox for the Rays, I think, from a afternoon to an evening. But the Cardinals happen to get the downside of the NFL-ation of the year of the society. So yeah, that's why it is weird. I don't know. It is strange. I don't know if it's worse to have the Saturday off day or those weird Sunday off days that they were getting with, Kansas City and Oakland for the last few years.
Yeah, that's true.
I don't know which is off more. Maybe it is Saturday because I mean.
Well, I would think the players would much rather have the Sunday extra day to travel now.
Right. Yeah.
You know, and I guess how I say it, be in your hometown instead of Tampa, but I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it depends on if they're going somewhere between. But yeah, I would think. I guess for a player though, maybe it is kind of nice because you do get a chance to actually see the town. You know, I mean, I don't know I know the players probably go out after games or beforehand, but to have a whole day to just gotta play tourist, I guess, might be kind of interesting. A little bit different for a baseball player that doesn't, because usually you're at least traveling in on a day, even if you get there the day before a series. So I don't know. It'd be interesting to, the cat or anybody asks what these guys did on their off day. May have just slept. Who knows? But
Mhm.
we will see. But yeah, no game today. The Cardinals. You know, I don't think Ollie is managing like this. I don't think anything. But I mean, they're 5 games out of the wild card, which is quite a bit. But it's not like I mean, we're Cardinal fans. We've seen more. So it's hard to completely say October is off the table, but just because technically it's, I guess not.
Sure. I mean, it's. I don't think either one of us or the majority of fans that, and I mean, you guys know me. I mean, the eternal optimist, and I'm watching, thinking that there's going to be a run, and they have a weak part of the schedule coming up, and you still have Cincinnati 6 games. You look at those things and you think, man, that's pretty exciting. I don't know if they have the rotation to sustain a long run anyway. That's but like we talked about before the show, it's one of those situations where you're just like, hey, they're playing meaningful ball right now. It's August 23rd, and they didn't ruin our summer. That was kind of the goal. We kind of knew where this was going to be, and it's I it's tough to fault them right now to see what's going on, especially when you see the lineup and not a lot of familiar names in it, and that is I think that is a testament to Ollie for the most part, and it's pretty exciting. It's exciting. I don't think there's a lot of clarity in what we're going to see in the off season or next season. I still think there's a little bit of a mystery because we just don't know much about the guy that's going to be calling the shots or how different things may be. But as of right now, other than being in a playoff spot and having a rotation that you think can sustain a series, I don't know if you could ask for much more than what they're doing right now.
Yeah, I mean, I think again, like I said, you're 5 games out. I'm really not considering them in a playoff.
No, well,
race
and
at all,
let me preface this by saying, under the circumstances that we were sold this year was going to be.
Oh yeah, no, I'm not faulting you at all. I mean, because I think it is fair to note that, hey, yeah, they're at least in the picture, even if they're on the very edge of the frame, I guess.
Yeah.
But I do think, I mean, they're a team that is now 2 games under 500. I think you hope for at least a little. You'd like them to win more than they lose, right? So you'd like to see them finish at 82 and 80 or something like that. Maybe if you're looking for a goal right now, you've got and like we say, it's a team that has a negative run differential at the moment. It's not as bad as it has been over the last couple of years, but it's still negative. And they're a team that until recently and again, a 2-game winning streak, they're back to 500, is right in that area. And so I think there is something to be said for, I mean, it's so impossible to know how managers, what their impact really is, especially this day and age when the front office is doing things and having more of a say than they would have, 20 years ago. But, when you can take a team and take them to 500 or better, even when there's, a negative run differential, I think that's got to give some credit to the manager to be able to manage on those, walking that tightrope and winning those close games, while still probably, losing some blowouts. Because this team, I mean, you look at the starting ERAs of the starting rotation, and the best one is Sonny Gray at 4.33, and he's supposed to be, kind of your ace pitcher, if you will. When you've got a rotation like that, and like you say, a lineup that's been really beat up with injuries as of late, and a lineup that hasn't necessarily completely clicked anyway. Um, to be where they're at is something for all. I mean, he's not going to win Manager of the Year or anything, but I think it's enough that when you get into those conversations about who's going to be back next year, I don't think it's an automatic slam dunk that he's not going to be it.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. And you and I have kind of have said that. No, if would we be surprised if November 1 he's not the manager? I don't think either one of us would be. You know what I mean? Just because of the new change in pace, I have gone from thinking, well, not that it was a foregone conclusion, but thinking that we may see a kind of a shift, like we talked about last week, of bringing in some outside voices and maybe going that route. But I feel like there's something tells me that there's some validation that he has by the way that he's handled the media spots that's not required of him, the in the things that he said. I mean, and that the abrupt. I don't know how to say it. He's been pretty blunt about some things this year that I don't know if we've seen in the past 5 from managers, and that's even Schill, who I thought was really good at it. I think he has a little bit of validation and maybe a good feeling that he will be back, honestly.
Maybe,
or doesn't care, which I like either way.
yeah. Yeah, and again, I know I saw the Cardinal off day guys show pop up on my feed, and I think they probably take a different approach to some of the media that we have seen out of Ollie Marmol. But I think it's very interesting to see that. I mean, one, Ken Rosenthal has an interview with him, and he mentions that he does have a regular contact with Chaim Bloom, right? He was having breakfast with him quite regularly, and I think there's, at least if nothing else, there seems to be a rapport there that doesn't preclude. I mean, I think if you were not doing anything with Chaim Bloom, then it was Chaim Bloom's probably almost automatically going to bring in a new guy. But here, again, I think it's very, very likely that he serves out 26, probably with no contract, as a bit of a lame duck, and then, if things go well, maybe later in the year they give him an extension. And if they don't, they go with another guy. It could go either way, but I have a feeling that Chaim Bloom may not, throw him out under the bus, if you will, because it depends on what this team looks like. There's a good chance it's not, no matter what happens this winter, it's not going to be a contending team next year either.
Yeah, that is one of the questions I was going to bring up and kind of see how we could go debate wise of, has anything you've seen so far made you think that, hey, this is how do I put it? Is this a team at this point that's just scrapping by with what they've got, or is it a team that's building and could be better next year? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It's, there's a lot of times you're thinking, well, this is a 500 team. Next year they could be, 15 games over this and this and this. How much confidence do you have in the direction that they're going? I mean, do you feel like this is one that we're going to see fewer players off the current roster next year, off this roster on next year's current roster, or do you feel like we're going to see improvement with the current roster enough that validates that you think, hey, this growth may be working?
I think it's really hard to be optimistic about this team with the rotation that's got.
Sure. The pitching, honestly, the pitching was the next question I had.
Yeah. I mean, I know that, we saw a terrible outing from Miles Mikolas yesterday. And I know he's not going to be around next year. I mean, well,
yes, I know. You talked about it. I completely understand.
Yeah, I do believe that he will not be around next year. I do think that, especially with Chaim Bloom taking over, I do not expect him to, because again, we've talked about, if the reason you have Miles Mikolas is for innings, right?
Yes.
He's pitched 9 innings less than Andre Palante in the same amount of starts.
Yeah.
Right now. He's pitched 20 innings less than Sonny Gray in the same amount of starts. He's pitched 3 innings more than Matthew Liberatore, and Liberatore started two times less than he has. He's not giving innings. I mean, I think there are games where he can. There are games where he can go 6, but there are games like last night where he didn't get out of the third. And so I don't think if you're the only, selling point on Michaelis is because it's definitely not performance, for the most part, is well, he can, absorb some innings and he's not doing that. So I think if John Mozeliak was still in play for next year, it's a stronger conversation because I can see that. I don't think Chaim Bloom goes that way. If he goes out and he might go out and get a Michaelis type, but it probably is at least somebody different. Um, and again, we talk about a terrible start for Miles Mikolas, puts his ERA at 5.17. That's exactly where Andre Palante is right now at
Yeah,
5.17. Um, you know, Matthew Luthor, if you're looking by ERA, which again is not necessarily your best judgment, but that's what we're using right here. Matthew Luthor is your best pitcher at 4.13.
yeah,
Again, Sonny Gray's got a 4.33, and I mean, I don't know. I mean, if Sonny Gray, if you can almost guarantee there's going to be a home run given up at Sonny Gray start, right? I mean, he's given up 20 homers in 26 starts. I mean, you just know that at some point in time, you just hope that nobody's on, right? Or it's
yeah.
not a deep a spot because there is going to be a home run in a Sonny Gray start. Um, and you saw the game that he pitched, 2 nights ago, where, he leaves and Chip says, "Well, that's he gave you 5 innings. That's the best you can hope for." Something. I'm like, if Sonny Gray should be giving you 5 innings, like bare minimum, right? I mean, if you're paying Sonny Gray what you're paying him to be your head of your rotation, I think they need to be getting more out of him than they are. I mean, he has those flashes, but I mean, if that's your best pitcher for next year, unless something significantly changes, it's hard to see how this rotation goes, really, really deep.
Sure, sure. That's the one concern that I have. The biggest gut punch is the minor league injuries in arms.
Mhm.
Because I feel like they need to bring somebody in anyway, regardless. Now, is that going to be the Mosaic mold? Because that's what worries me about Michaelis. Now, I do think that's played out. I think that's going to be. I just think those days are over of that being the safety valve of bringing guys back, extend. Because I think that they're. Well, I don't think they're ever going to admit a mistake on those things, but yeah, that was probably a little too early extension. The
Twice.
one, they just need to. They're going to need innings to cover, especially with everybody hurt. And I don't know why. Gut feeling, I, I'm 50-50 on whether Gray's back.
Mm. Yeah.
I don't know why I feel that way because honestly, I think you could if you could go Gray Liberatore, who I do think I'm a Liberatore guy, and I used to not be. I just think he's going to be effective. I think you're running into innings limits now. I think you're running into some fatigue. The organization hasn't done him a lot of favors. And if you're going to go one direction with it. And I hope that they ride it out for a little while. I think he has the profile to be a really good arm. But I do think you have to add regardless because you don't have anybody knocking on the door to extend it. I mean, I understand they're toying with the Leahy to the rotation idea. I mean, I think you plan for all those things and you just you overdo it on a rotation type style, especially if your lineup's going to be the same, which potentially it's going to be unless you start moving. Then you're going to move out a ton because I don't know if they're going to give up on any of the young bats. And I argued that they shouldn't, but it's all going to start with pitching, and I don't have a lot of confidence right now unless we're convinced that they're going to bring in somebody that's substantial, that they're going to have enough innings and quality innings to cover a season next year.
Yeah, I mean that's fair. And you mentioned Gray, and I think that's very interesting. I happened to read Derek Gould's chat this week, and somebody asked him the percentage chances that Arenado, Gray, and Contreras would waive their no trade clause, and he said, Arenado's low unless the right team comes along, and Contreras was very low, but Gray was a coin flip, and that surprised me as well that he might be. I mean, granted, he only has one more year in St. Louis, and so maybe he would be interested in it. I don't know. I mean does surprise me a little bit just because of how much geography played into him coming to St. Louis. But um, I don't know. Maybe you're right. I would be if they, and I think that would be very hard for them to overcome. So I feel like it's one of those things that they're not going to ask him. If he comes to them and says, "Hey, I'm one out," then they'll do something. But I can't imagine. I mean, right now, like you said, it's a little bit hard to see how they feel the rotation next year with Sonny Gray. Trying to replace him seems almost impossible.
Yeah. There's just the thing that sets in that I always keep in the back of my head is the fact that the foul the foul territory guys that were former players that know these. Kratz was insistent that Gray could be traded. He said he goes that mindset has completely changed. Not that he wanted out, but the options were there because I think you can see the writing on the wall of what the next couple of years may be. Now, I don't know if next year is going to be the second of those years or the next year is going to be the first of the next rebuild. I don't know. But I mean, they were insistent that Gray could be had and that he would be willing to do it. And that always that weighed a lot to me because I was thinking, yeah, you had the geography side of this, but you never know with a player. I mean, it's one of those that he'll be 36 next season, or no, he'll be 36 this winter, and you may want that one last run if he can be that one piece. I mean, I don't know where everybody stands on that, but yeah, you're right. I mean, it just increases the problem that we could see coming that they just don't have enough innings next year.
Yeah, yeah, it does. I mean, Quinn Matthews seems to have kind of a bit righted the ship, and I mean, it hit to the point that it's a possibility we'd see him in September, but he's definitely
Yeah,
going to be in play for a rotation spot next year. But it's again not. I don't imagine that's one. It's kind of like Matthew Liberatore here, right? They've started to try to limit his innings. He's also run into a few spots here and there that have made that made it needed that. But are they going to let Quinn Matthews get a full year of innings at the big league level, or are they going to have to manage those as well? And if that's the case, then again, you still need arms for those other innings. So I don't know. I mean, if you're talking about just the offense, I would be a lot more optimistic. Even though there's some work to be done over there as well, I would be more optimistic that some of those players could take a step forward. But the pitching side of things, especially in the starting rotation, I mean, the bullpen, they've done a pretty good job with some bullpen pieces. And bullpens are kind of erratic anyway. They're good one year, they're not good the next year. You kind of keep those churning. So you'd hope that they would do that. But that rotation is just, I feel like that's kind of the anchor that's going to keep them from being a true contender.
sure, and that's the big question mark to me. I mean, are they going to because I agree with you on the offense. I'm thinking, this may not be as bad as we thought. I mean, yeah, I think you're going to have to see uptick from guys. We understand that. I do feel like you're going to have to figure out catcher a little bit more.
Mhm.
But there is a little bit of enthusiasm there for me. But yeah, I worry about being able to get guys out. I mean that's a concern, and I don't know what direction they're going to go. I mean, can you go get arms that are going to improve? Do you see enough now to where you think, hey, we can go spend a little bit of money and do this, or is it one of those that we're going to see a completely different offense as well, and we really know where we're going?
Yeah, I mean, again, with Chaim Bloom coming in, we don't really know what he's going to do. It feels like he's going to have to make some sort of trade moves just because, I mean, one, you've got players that might be kind of hitting their ceiling,
Yeah,
or at least their ceiling with St. Louis. And two, you've just got that, that same mix that we've talked about for so long of players, especially if Nolan Arenado's still here, where does Gorman play? Um, because Donovan or Weatherholt's going to play second base, and if Weatherholt's up here, then where does Donovan play? Does Nootbaar play? Um, you know those kind of things. When are you going to, how much more leeway do you give Jordan Walker? I think they probably give him quite a bit, but that's a concern as well. You're right, catcher. You've got basically two backup catchers playing. Starting. And, what do you do there? Because it feels like I mean, you hate to get rid of either one of those guys from a personality and, the importance to the team aspect, but you also don't really have a real catcher. And for the fact that you have so many in the minor leagues, do you try Herrera back there and let him try to, hope
Yeah.
that his, legs will hold it? I don't know, but it's, yeah, I think there's going to be, I'm more optimistic. And again, we say this every year, and then oh, they're going to have to do this, this, and this. And then they don't do this, this, or this. They do
Yeah.
like absolutely nothing. But I do think that this winter is probably going to have more churn than we've seen in a while.
Yeah. Agreed. And it's, I can't remember if it was Sunday's game. Pretty sure it was that Herrera was on with the cat. And he said the plan is to move back behind the plate next year. And I don't know if that's just stuff that a player says or what direction that goes. You know what I mean? One of those things. I'm not really certain, but that would make a lot of sense if he could do it. You know what I mean? And because then you're thinking, okay, that gives you a little bit of flexibility here, kind of opens up another lineup spot for you. But I'm not convinced it's going to happen, and I'm also not convinced he can hit at the rate that he does if he is catching.
I feel like, yeah, I mean that's absolutely true. I would imagine that if he does catch, it's still like what 100 games, maybe, and maybe
To me, that seems like
hitting.
a lot.
Yeah, even then, maybe it may be, you know, but and then the rest is split in DH or catch or outfield or something like that. They'll still get his bat in the lineup. Yeah, I can't imagine him catching 120 games or anything like that.
Yeah.
Um, and you're right, 100 might be overselling it as well.
Now I don't know. There's the fantasy land where you're like, hey, could you go get a 36-year-old Real Muto for 2 years? You know what I mean? One, you're not going to pay that.
Right.
It's just
Yeah.
and because I'm actually looking to see how many games he's actually caught this year, because I don't think it's as many as he is as many as I'm thinking. But one of those deals, that's not the stupid money aspect of, but are you willing to pay for a guy that could come in and bring as much leadership as he does, catching ability anymore?
Yeah.
And it may be wrong, and he's not even really still the player that he's used to. It's just, I don't know. Those are names that you'd always want to see as a Cardinal, and it's just not going to happen. But you would think, hey, could that and a Herrera work, or that and a Pajes work? And just crazy things like that, which they're not going to bring in any veterans like that. It's just pie in the sky type deal. But is there any benefit to doing something like that? I would love to know what organization would think that yes, that would probably work, or and the mindset of why they would say that. Not necessarily, I think the Cardinals are that organization.
No, yeah, I think you're right. I think that with as many, I think somebody would. Yeah, I think there's definite advantages to that, especially if you had a young prospect that you wanted to, kind of
Yes.
bring along. But yeah, Cardinals are not that team. Now, if you're looking for old veterans that you've always wanted to be a Cardinal, I mean, Max Scherzer is going to be on the market this winter. I mean, maybe he takes the Miles Mikolas spot. And I mean, and Scherzer's still better than Miles. So I mean, not
Yeah.
that. I mean, you deal with injuries and you deal with he's not what he was when he could have signed with the Cardinals 10 years ago.
Yeah.
But
Go ahead.
not just but he's still Max Scherzer.
And it's something that they need is somebody that you'll pay to watch.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I do kind of wonder how much that's going to factor into some things too.
Yeah. I mean, we talked about that for so long with Mark Burley, thinking that his last year or two he would, show up in St. Louis, and it never happened. But I mean, I'm pretty sure Scherzer's a free agent at the end of the year. If he wants to pitch another year, and I've not heard any reason that he doesn't, I guess it's not out of the realm of possibility that when they're not spending any money on anybody else, they would spend a little money on a 1-year deal for Scherzer, like you said, if nothing else, to get people at least somewhat excited about the team.
Sure. Well, and I just due to the last 5 to 10 minutes of our conversation, and honestly, the last 4 or 5 shows that we've done, I think like we're in agreement that they have to go add some arm somewhere, right?
Oh yeah, yeah.
I mean, it's just, I mean, that's in the back of my mind where you're thinking, gosh, I just hope it's not a same. Well, honestly, there was not a lot of, well, I won't say that either, but I don't know if it's going to be the middling side. I feel
What do
like,
you mean?
well, you know how you could almost pick, you remember that you had Nola, you had, who were the big arms that were out there that year where Gray was probably the third or fourth on the list?
Um, Boy, I don't remember. Nola was there for sure. Um, I don't remember who the other one was because I don't think we ever really expected the Cardinals to go get
Yeah,
him.
that's well, and 100%. That's kind of what I was thinking. You knew the top of the heap that they were going to go after was a Gray because it was going to be affordable,
Yeah.
and you knew that Gibson and Lynn were guys that, when you looked a little bit deeper, just made a whole lot of sense for the Cardinals. Are
Mhm.
those the signings we're going to see more of the Gibson and Lynn types?
I mean,
And I wouldn't necessarily
possibly.
disagree with it. I just wonder
Right.
if that mindset will change.
I mean, and again, I mean, yeah, maybe. Yeah, I did pull up Scherzer's numbers just to look at. He's got a 3.60 ERA, but he's only pitched 11 games and only 60 innings, and he's still striking out about a batter an inning. So that wouldn't be out of the realm of possibility. But if you're looking for, that veteran that's going to, eat innings, and hopefully do it at a reasonable spot. I mean, yeah, I wouldn't. I mean, probably again, Chaim Bloom coming in. I mean, could you see? Hey, this is not. We're going to just get young arms, and we'll let them. We'll stockpile young arms, and we'll piggyback, and we'll rotate through, and it may take us 10 or 11 or 12 starters this year to get through the year, but that's what we're going to do and see what we have versus, going to get that old reliable that will be, you know, mediocre and but will get you through.
Does your job. Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
Um
Yeah, no, I mean you're right. You bring up roster churn, you bring up those things, but I mean I think we're all in agreement on that. And then you can probably start looking at that second tier, And I don't know. In the past, you'd say second tier, middle second tier is where they're going to start looking, but I don't know. I mean the possibilities are kind of endless here, and I'm not really certain what direction they're going to go. But I'm also going to lean to where it's like there's going to be a lot of youth bump on the bump next year.
yeah. Now, it is also possible, I don't know how far I go down this road, but that the Cardinals will look at the fact that they're 19th or 20th or whatever in attendance and know that there's not necessarily that pull on the roster right now, and that they will go out and get somebody that at least gets them some buzz this offseason. Um, and tries to, bump the ticket sales or something of that nature, because that's not all of what, I mean, they need a team that wins to get people back in the stadium, but they also need some sort of star power, and this team doesn't have it. I mean, as much as we like, Mason Wynn, I mean, he's not enough. I mean, he's probably got the local big fish in a small pond, if you will. But he doesn't have that pull overall yet. I mean, he's only in his third year. If Jordan Walker had turned into the Jordan Walker we thought he would be, maybe you'd have that, but that still seems to be down the line if it's coming at all. Um, and you've got a lot of good players that don't necessarily move the excitement needle,
Yes.
and can you bring in one or two of those players? I mean, obviously payroll's going to is the money available for payroll will probably be less again next year because of, it's kind of that spiral of ticket sales, but at some point in time, you've got to break that spiral or you're going to have problems. And I mean, I don't know, maybe it's there, maybe it's not.
Yeah, it's I mean if you're gonna market something that's currently on the roster and you're gonna add to it, it's got to be winning. You got to go all in. Like that's I'm not so certain you may not have to wrap him up now. I thought about that a
Yeah.
lot after we got off the show last week, to where you're gonna have to validate that these guys are gonna be here to stay, because I think that may be some of the worry too of have you you're re-signing a Mikolas, but you're not re-signing these other guys. And yeah, you see, I completely understand the move, and I do think it's going to benefit the Cardinals. But you go and see in a Rosarena, who's a highlight guy, who's in the home run derby every week and has that personality. I understand. I mean, that's not even a long-term guy. I'm saying to stand. But the Cardinals don't have that. The closest they have that in that is a win and potentially a Scott. And there's a bunch of directions I think you can go with that to where you really need to start marketing and pushing them as much as you can, especially when, because I think I think he's close to stardom. Should win a Gold Glove this year, and why that doesn't have the weight that it used to. He should win it. It'd be bad if he doesn't. I know you don't. I know he doesn't hit the bombs that a lot of the shortstops do nowadays, but that's coming back around slowly but surely to the type of player that he's going to be. I think that you got to go all in and build off that. Now, whether you want to go out and get a bigger face to market, hey, I'm all for it. But I think you need to double down with win now.
Yeah. I mean, and it is fair to say that, right now Mason Wynn, judged by, OPS plus or, is a 95, which is, slightly below average. He's had a rough August. But, offensively, he's got room to grow. But you're right,
Sure.
defensively, and I mean, and again, in a town that still reveres Ozzie Smith, having a defense first shortstop that can still produce somewhat offensively, is not unheard of, right? I mean, it's still a selling point. So yeah, I agree. I think that if anybody's going to get an extension on this team, it's probably him, because I think Donovan makes a lot of sense when we talked about it at the trade deadline, right? I mean, he's a guy that has some value, maybe the guy that has the most value when you factor in, team control and where he can play and what he can do. He may have the most value on this whole entire team. And it's hard to imagine, if Chaim Bloom is going to, because he's not probably going to spend a lot of money. He may get some in the free agent market, but you're not going to be remaking this team in the free agent market. So if you're going to try to do something, it would probably require a trade. And it feels like Donovan, as much as it would be, painful to lose him, might be the quickest way to try to get some talent back in this organization.
Yeah, which is a gut punch because I love Donovan as well. And I mean, I've fallen in love with a lot of the everyday lineup. I'm a big Burleson guy. I like Donovan. I like I'm a big Win fan. I think Scott is somebody that if he could ever learn to get on base, if his OBP is high, is going to be a star. He will fit in St. Louis so well. So there's some optimism, from me on that aspect. I feel like you should build from there and build off of it, and unfortunately, some of those guys may be the ones that are moved out. I would hate to lose Donovan because I think he's your best player, but I think it would be criminal if they move Win or let it play out to where he goes into free agency and slow plays it. I think that'd be a major mistake.
Yeah, and I mean, yeah, I agree. I think it will be interesting to see how long they want to run with that, right? And again, we're still balancing that. Chaim Bloom has been in the organization for now basically 2 years, right? I mean, he had the year of auditing everybody, and then he's had what he's doing this year with the development side. So he's not coming into this completely cold. And he has an idea of what he wants to do and what things need to be done. But we still don't know what that is. And so,
Yeah.
He may be that he's hesitant to lock anybody up long term. I would agree with you. I would rather see them do that and not, and then just let him blossom, because I think there's still a chance of that. But I also know that you're right. I mean, we watch these guys all the time. We get to see their personalities. We get attached to them to some degree. I mean, if we're not attached to them, it's probably because nobody else wants them either, right? I mean, if they're not, and I think there's a lot of good players on this team. I think there are some players that we as fans maybe hold to a little tighter than we should, because we see the potential or we've seen what they can do in the past or whatever the case may be. I think of Lars Nootbaar, right? I mean, we all like Lars, but a guy that, one, has had health issues in the past, and two, got a pretty good run this year at times. And never really kind of completely clicked. Could he still? Yeah, but I mean, I think it comes to a point of when do you stop waiting on all these guys, right? You have to, I think, at some point in time say, look, I know this is a guy still has possibilities, but we can't continue to wait here, because if you sit around and wait and wait and wait on 8 guys, then eventually you're 3 years down the road and you're not any closer to contending than you were now.
Yeah. That's all leads back to that bigger point of just what direction are we willing to go, and that's a great point of that's the dangerous part that we're in as fans, like of our side of fan, to where sometimes you have to take that, that view of the whole instead of the smaller view of what, like, hey, I really like these guys because I see them play every day, and you're right. I mean, is my ideology why they're in trouble? Basically, that's kind of what I have to ask myself a lot of times.
Yeah, I think that's the balancing act that a front office needs to do, because I think we don't necessarily I don't think I guess I shouldn't say we. I don't think I want a Tampa Bay Rays front office that seems to have, no attachment to their players whatsoever, right? I mean, if there's a guy that's, 2 years away, they're going to trade him off or something, you really don't get a chance. And again, that's some of what their market is and some of how they do. But, part of the reason they've been successful is they've, they've not necessarily hung around waiting on people. They've gotten what they can out of them and then, developed something else. I don't know that I want that, but I don't think we also don't want a front office that clings on to people like Miles Mikolas, right? That because he's been here for 6 or 7 years. I mean, I think there are some front offices that would have designated him for assignment by now, this year, especially. And there's absolutely no way the Cardinals are going to do that, right? I mean, Miles Mikolas is going to be here until closing day, because he's been a Cardinal since 2018, and he was a success story of them, scouting the Asian markets, and he's a veteran and all that, and he's about as locked in as you can get.
Sure.
And I think that I'd rather some sentiment be involved with this and some idea of, let's keep this guy because we've grown him. But I also know that, hard decisions have to be made, and sometimes we're not going to like them.
Yeah. And, as I say every day in the school, change sometimes isn't pretty. Yep. And you know what I mean? And it can be painful, but you're right. Change is necessary.
And we've talked, coming into this year, maybe even some of last year, but, we talk about there was going to need to be the runway, the reset, all that kind of stuff. But I think going into this year, we thought 2026 would give us a pretty clear spot, right? And the Cardinals would be, they know who was good, they know who was not good. They'd have a real good chance of contending in 26. I don't think the season has played out that way. I don't feel like, I mean, when somebody says, I had a conversation this week and somebody asked, how long is it going to be before the Cardinals are good again? And, or at least, real contending team. And I don't know that I've got a real good answer, because again, Chaim Bloom could change things up, and maybe we're going into next spring thinking, oh yeah, this team has a chance now. But as it stands right now, I mean, it's hard to say, 27, 28. I don't know when the Cardinals would be a legitimate contender for either the division or the wild card.
Sure. Yeah, I know. I agree. That's the biggest mystery to me. And my mind starts racing on those things because one, I wonder if you're right about the runway. I do feel like guys have got guys somewhat have been given it. I worry this more and more to turn on just a pressure that Jordan Walker will never answer, will never become what we think he's going to become. Yeah, that's concerning to me, because I wonder how much he feels that, because this is 2 years in a row to where it's like, hey, we don't have the next star because you haven't become the next star. That's troubling to me. because I think there was a lot of Win Scott Walker type movement to where like, hey, we can build around this pack, and then you throw in a Gorman. If Gorman goes back to 25 bombs, yeah, I mean, then you look a little bit different. Then you can keep your Donovans, you can, and you move those pieces. I don't want that pressure to feel. I don't want that all to fall on his shoulders, because I think it somewhat is. Because you're thinking, well, now you don't feel like I think, hey, he's 23 years old, man. I mean, you got to roll with this a little bit, but performance is going to count, and it has to someday if you're going to try to contend again. And on the flip side, we talked about this the last couple of weeks. You look at a Milwaukee team who's plug and play at this point and has stolen what you were when you were golden and you could win and you knew you were formidable to go in and play. They've stolen your playbook and they've enhanced it to a level now to where they're the best team in the league. And you looked and we thought that this could be a Cubs Cardinals if the Cardinals played well situation, with Cincinnati being on that outlier, to where now you're thinking, how long is this going to last in Milwaukee? Because it doesn't seem like it's going to end. A lot of things I know you can't balance off what else is going on in the division, but those things are troubling to me. I mean, there's on the bright side, I feel like the Cubs have kind of got all in this year, and that may not work out for them, but still, I wonder how far behind the Cardinals are the Brewers right now, and I also kind of worry about the Reds a little bit. So I just don't know in an all-encompassing world how I feel about the competition factor, to where I think in a division where I think if you strike when it's hot, you can win it. I just don't know if Milwaukee's going to fall back anytime soon, and that kind of concerns me.
I mean, that's fair. I think that's absolutely fair. It's also fair to note that Milwaukee has played out of their minds this year, right? I mean, a 14-game winning streak, an 11-game winning streak, a stretch of 26-4. I mean, those aren't going to have. I mean, they're going to be good. Don't get me wrong, and I think they're still going to be a team that's going to be in contention for the division for quite some time. But I don't know that you can judge them by what they are this year. Now, again, you're right. The last 3 or 4 years, again, they went from Council to Murphy and didn't miss a beat. They're obviously a very smart organization. They have become what the Cardinals were. And so I don't disagree with that at all. I just, I know that they're going to, I say that I'm pretty sure they're going to fall back at least some next year, just because it's hard to continue to have that kind of, white hot pace. But yeah, I think that's all fair. I mean, you've got to kind of start seeing where you stand in the division that you have, or you go realign it, which, I mean, we can talk about a little bit, has been the topic of the week. So yeah, I don't know what they do there. Let's talk while we're talking about young guys. Since we haven't talked a lot about what the Cardinals did this week, Nathan Church gets his call up. I think he did everything he could. He'd already scored a run. He'd already stolen the base. He'd already been hit by a pitch before he finally got his actual first hit last night. And then he hit his first home run right after that. What do you think of, we've had him, basically a week now in St. Louis, as Victor Scott, got hurt against the Yankees. What have you thought about him?
I mean, I don't know. Last night was exciting to watch. I will tell you that, and you feel good for him, and in all those situations. I mean, not blown away by any means. Just kind of a placeholder in the situation. Happy for him. Happy for the organization. Vanilla at this point. Haven't really thought too much about it. I mean, I'm glad that he's getting everyday starts and things like that. But more on the aspect of, hey, it's awesome to get the first big league hit. The bomb last night, it was cool. Plays hard. I was impressed by the dirty jersey several times in the Marlins series. Like those things, but I'm a Victor Scott guy. Let's be honest. What I'm saying? And I understand where you're coming from, but yeah, just I don't know. Apathetic, I guess you'd say for it.
I think that's fair. I mean, Church had a great year in Memphis, but I don't know how much that'll translate to the big leagues, which is, also fair to think about with JJ Weatherholt, right? I mean, different quality of player, but I think that when we continue to talk about, well, whether he'll get a call up, how much the gap is between AAA and the majors.
Yeah.
But Church gets his cup of coffee. I figure he'll be on, he's on the 40 man, so he'll probably be up and down some next year as they need outfield help. But it feels like he's more in a different way. He's more like the Luke and Baker type role, right? I mean, the guy that may have a real good run at Memphis and, fill in at the big league here and there, but not necessarily ever be a real part of the picture.
Yeah.
I feel like that's the case.
Sure.
That being said, it's a kind of a player that in the past has really been taken to by, the fan base and the front office and all that kind of stuff. And you see more of them than maybe you should.
Yeah, very true. We've seen that through the years, and I would always like to go back and hear the mindset on why the moves are made that are moved. That are made. Just and not question them. I would just like to know the processes.
Yeah, yeah. I think we've talked about. I still think that, having a book of if John Mozeliak was honest about it, what he would do, writing a book of his time here and the trades that weren't made and the trades that were, would be very interesting. And again, who was called up and why, also as well. So, I don't know. Like I said, it's if nothing else, again, it gives a chance to see a guy that has had a good year get a chance to play in the big leagues, and I think that's we're fine with that.
Yes, yeah. I mean, that's what it is, and it's funny. We had talked a little bit earlier of the lineup's hard to even the lineup like last night and even through the Marlins series is just it's completely different than what you thought. And I mean, it's decimated right now with some injuries, but they're doing what they're doing, and you can't complain about that. And I guess that probably speaks more to Church than I think.
Yeah. I think we also should give a little bit of credence to the bullpen this month. I mean,
Oh yeah,
the fact that they traded off 3 guys. I think we also we kind of said at the time though, they're going to trade these 3 guys and they're still probably going to be okay in the bullpen because they have a lot of interesting arms. I have been on the Matt Swanson train for like all season long because I kept feeling kept feeling like he was getting a whole lot of garbage time and doing real well with it and never really getting a chance. Well, he's getting a chance now and we're seeing some real good stuff out of him. Again, it's just a situation, that he'll be able to do it next year. Who knows? Because relievers are volatile, but it's been nice to see him. And then, Riley O'Brien and, Leahy, others that have really stepped up to the point that the bullpen, there's not a whole lot of iffiness out there. If the Cardinals get a lead and turn it over to the bullpen, I mean, you feel pretty good about it. Not 100%, but you feel pretty good about it.
Sure. There's that. That's another thing I was going to ask. Does that give you optimism, or is it one of those right now to where a bullpen's a bullpen and the fluctuation year to year is just you can't really count on it? But the pieces they have back are really, really good.
Yeah, I again, I hate to go, because I do think this is they're young guys that are playing well that have a lot more strikeout ability than we've seen out of some Cardinal bullpens. And so, and I know Swanson especially, I think is a guy that the development team got a hold of and made some, adjustments. So yeah, I think I'm optimistic that these guys go into next year as a pretty good bullpen, but also with the the knowledge that, it's very difficult for a bullpen to repeat. And a lot of times you need to have some significant churn because somebody's not going to be good. And so but I think we're seeing some really good interesting stuff out of the guys that are out there. And I think that's at least one of the bright spots of the second half.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. And it's I like the fact that you're seeing some O'Brien and Romero save opportunities. To kind of see what they got. I think they really like both of them, and that gives you a little bit of optimism. But yeah, I mean, like I said, I mean, I think that speaks more, or I think that shines a light on the poor rotation more than anything right now. We understand why it's in the spot, that it's in. I mean, I think we both do. But still, yeah, the bullpen's been fun to watch, and honestly, just watching them compete has been entertaining.
Yeah, I mean, there are times we've seen, but even last night was a good example. Now, granted, they're playing in a minor league ballpark, and
Tough.
I feel like that
Yes.
plays some to go regard to that. And then much like I looked at the earlier this week, I looked and the A's have like 5 guys that have 20 home runs, and
Hmm.
I think part of that is because they're playing in the minor league ballpark. But down what 7-1, 7-0 something, and they got back to 7-6 before the bullpen did give up a little bit of extra runs there. Um, but you know, I mean, it hasn't. There have been a few more games in the second half where it's like after the second or third inning, you kind of feel like you could go ahead and turn it off because it's pretty much decided. But for the most part, it's been an interesting summer, and you're right. I mean, worth watching, um, and to see again lots of questions, especially in the rotation, but. For the most part, it's been interesting, and you're right. They're going to be playing some rivals. They're going to be playing some easier teams. I mean, although they're one of the easier teams too, I guess.
Yeah, exactly.
But they should it should be it could be an interesting September. Again, I not a oh here come they're going to make a run type of September, but just a will they win more games than they lose, and can you see some good baseball before the season wraps up?
Yeah, that's kind of what we hope for. I don't know if you truth serum to anybody that, like I said, we said this last week, that thought they would be here or unfortunately didn't want them to be here.
Yeah, yeah. I think this is it. To some degree, you could argue this has been like maybe the worst of both worlds because they weren't bad enough to really
Sure.
revamp stuff, but they weren't good enough to be in contention. But like you said, you don't want them ruining your summer, and if they win more than they lose, and that's still a possibility, then more days than more days than not, we've ended the day happy, I guess. So we'll like that. So before we wrap it up, it has been it has been the topic of the week has been realignment. Um, and it's the situation that's still probably, again, probably waits for expansion. And probably expansion's not for another 5 or 6 years. So it's way down the road. That being said, lockout, um, trying to get the TV rights all to, come up in 28, things could happen before that, but most likely this is way down the road. And we talk about it, we've talked about it 6, 7, 8 times probably since what was it, 98, right? Tampa Bay and Arizona
Yeah.
came in. So it's been a long time. And you and I, we remember quite a bunch of, the 93 expansion, the 98 expansion. I mean, technically, I don't remember it, but there was the 77 expansions. We've had some in our lifetimes. Um, so it's been a quite some time. I'm interested. I don't. I'm afraid to know what they'll do with realignment because
Yeah,
I think,
I was my neck. Yeah.
yeah. But I mean, what do you want to see out of it?
There's been some proposals, and I can't remember who. There were two that were really good. I know Bowden's was one of them. That I thought, well, that would be pretty interesting. But I don't know. But I will tell you the way that it was leaked. Yeah, I wouldn't even say leaked. The way that Manfred said it during the telecast, I was like, this is happening.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, there can be one. I've always thought that it probably needed to happen anyway. I'm also a fan of the unbalanced schedule.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
it's because I don't know why I'm not a huge. I get where they're coming from to kind of grow the game, but I'm not a big play everybody fan. So I don't know if that'll bear into it. I am a big playoff fan though. So I don't know. I kind of ride the rails on what I want to see here. I'll say this: I have gone more seeing what I see every day. I have gone more into the fact of I think tradition does need to change a little bit. I think that there's some historical things that baseball holds on to that I think that they could do without, and not necessarily because they're bad things, but I think that they're necessary to change because there's demographics that have zero clue what this sport is.
Yeah, and you've always been one to want more change than I do. Everybody knows that.
Hey,
I don't.
I'll say this. When you have to buy gloves for freshmen,
Yeah,
that changes everything.
yeah, yeah. I understand. I mean, I don't. I'm not faulting you at all for that. You've always been,
No,
even before you were into the coaching. You've always been a little bit less.
sure,
You hold a little
sure.
less tightly to the traditions of the game than I do, which is not a problem at all. I know I probably hold on to them more than I should.
And I'm not faulting.
Um,
Yeah, and I'm not faulting anybody that wants to hold on to those things.
yeah,
And I'm not saying that I see things that other people don't, but that's the one thing that really surprised me the most. And I think that that's why you see. I do think baseball sees it. I think that's why you see a more push for player over team, because I think that's what the way that you're going to get guys back more than you are the embedded fan of a certain organization like you and I are.
yeah.
And I think that that's where I think we're going to see more of a change and keep up with the current times because we're losing an element fast.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, there's something to that. I just worry. I think there is a concern, and we see it in a lot of different places. Maybe other places in the news this week, where you run the risk of alienating your core fans while not necessarily bringing anybody else in, and then you're getting stuck in the worst of both worlds situation, right? Where
Sure.
the ones that you count on to support everything are not, and then you've not brought in the new casuals, if you will. That being said, I don't know. I think I don't want to see them basically give up the American League and National League. If you want to go to 4 divisions of 4 teams,
Yes.
I'm fine with that.
I completely agree with that.
Although I did see somebody offer, or maybe it was Nate on Talking About Birds that had the idea of, 2 divisions of 8. That would work just as well. 2 divisions of 8 in each league. It's because you're probably going to be taking the top 4 or whatever anyway. I mean, does that possibly gives you, like it was back before our time, when the top National League team and top American League team went to the World Series, you knew you had the best teams, right? If you go 4 divisions of 4, especially depending on how you do it, there could be a lot of good teams that don't make the playoffs and some weak teams that do, right? I mean, if you had a division of the Cardinals, Pirates, Reds, and I guess Brewers might be in there, and then you'd have the Brewers be dominant. But even the rest of that division is, excuse me, not that great. And it's a possibility that you get one of those teams in there. So I don't know.
Yeah.
But I just would like to see them. If they're going to do it, I'd rather them shuffle the teams that are in the division, add a Nashville to one, add Portland to another, and go back to the unbalanced schedule. So you're playing those teams quite a bit and get those regional rivalries. Because I think that's the biggest thing for baseball beyond what you're saying is getting the young fans
Yes.
who are sizes of players. The fact that, you see the Reds 18 times and you get a feel for the Reds and you maybe don't like the Reds, or whatever. I mean, you have those kind of rivalries, whereas where it is now, excuse me, there isn't that, right? I mean, you're barely seeing anybody. It just feels like this. I keep getting on the soapbox, but this balanced schedule just feels like you never see anybody, right? I mean, you're seeing everybody, and so none of it stands out. Not like all those Cardinal Cubs series. You could have one basically once a month, and you really got a feel for that. I really had a chance for that. When you see them twice a year or whatever the case may be, I guess, twice a year home, twice a year away instead of 3 times. it makes a difference. I mean, it just doesn't feel like the division matters at all. And I'd much rather see,
Yeah,
even a small one, play those games more often, and whoever comes out of that division at least probably deserves to, because they've beaten the teams that are in the division.
sure. Yeah, it's I agree with that. I mean, it's one that the the intrigue of a realignment's nice. I remember the two big divisions very, very well. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I'm sure you do too. I mean, it's then those were battles to the end.
sure.
There's an intrigue to me of the four teams. I don't know how the schedule will work out, but I kind of like that. And then it kind of opens up, the possibility of the playoff expansion and things like that. And I do think we need to add a couple more teams. So I don't know. I mean, the change is welcome on my side. I understand the traditional side of it. That's like, hey, we're doing too much now. The game doesn't even look the same. But I don't know. I mean, I'm not as bold into those things. I mean, look at it this way: is the DH as bad as you thought? That's the question, I think, because I think that one, it's either it just resign the fact that it was going to happen, or that it's actually been a benefit, because I like it.
I mean, I still would rather have the double switches and the pitcher batting and all that kind of stuff, but I will say it's just kind of been, I guess resigned is the better way to it.
Yeah,
And I mean, it's it's been a bit of a crutch for the Cardinals to some degree, because they would have had to make some moves if it didn't have for the DH.
yeah,
But and it's not like we've seen an uptick in offense because of the DH. So there is that. Um, but yeah, I get what you're saying. And I think the biggest thing about some of these projections, when they kind of throw everybody into pot and start making divisions, they tend to put like the Yankees, the Red Sox, the Mets, and maybe the Phillies all in one division. I can't imagine that's ever going to happen, right? Because those guys don't want to be, that means probably at least two of those teams never make the playoffs. Where then you have a division of, like we said, Pittsburgh, Cleveland, St. Louis, and Kansas City or something, that,
yeah,
a team that's much weaker would be making it and the other ones don't. And there's a lot of money in those two teams. Those owners are push for separate, separate divisions, especially for like the Yankees and Mets. I don't think you want, as much as you like those inner city rivalries and things of that nature, I don't think you want both New York teams, both Chicago teams, both LA teams in the same division when you redo this.
yes, yeah. I agree. Just the watered down aspect of it. I know what you mean.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, that's another week. Cardinals, you know, they do what they do. And I
Yeah,
don't try to. I'm not even sure. They'll play Tampa Bay tomorrow. I can't remember. They go back home for 4 against Pittsburgh, don't they? And then back on the road. It's a really weird. Yeah, 4 against Pittsburgh. Then they're back on the road against the Reds. Before coming back home for this schedule. I mean, September at least makes sense because it's almost a minor league schedule. It's 6 games at home and then 6 games on the road and then 6 games. But the end of August is a mess. Um, so Pirates and Reds next week. You got to feel, I mean, the Pirates are the Pirates. And then you get a chance, if you want to pretend like you're in a race, you get a chance to try to do something about it.
yep. I mean, they have the chance. I mean, they have a weak schedule, and but they that's what the other teams are saying about coming to St. Louis too.
Yep.
So yeah, I mean, let's see if they can play into September and be meaningful. I mean, can you cut it to 3 quick? We'll see. I mean, like losing the ground last night hurt. I mean, because if you can keep it in at 4, you're all right. And then the day off today, we'll see what the outlier brings tomorrow and how quick they're willing to get back to St. Louis, because that's usually a tell.
Yeah. Yeah. Hopefully not, although it's an afternoon game and the night games have been hard
Early.
enough.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, so it may be unpleasant to be out there. But anyway, like I said, if nothing else, when Al and I get to you next week, we'll hopefully have had a week of fall-like weather and we'll be in a better mood if nothing else. So and we got a thing from Rich at Remembered's coming up here in a bit, so stick around for that. But until next time, for Alan, I'm Daniel. Good night.
Good night.
Alisea, the second for one, the double play. What a double play by Ozzie Smith. Oh, mercy.
Hi, everyone. Rich Bray here with a look back at how Glenn Brummer became arguably the most unlikely game-winning hero in Cardinals history on August 22nd, 1982. An Illinois native, Brummer played his college baseball at Lakeland College in Mattoon, Illinois, and signed with the Cardinals as an undrafted free agent in 1974. After working his way through the Cardinals farm system, Brummer made his major league debut in 1981, appearing in 21 games, primarily as a defensive replacement. In 1982, Brummer spent most of the early weeks of the season in the minors, but when Darrell Porter broke his finger in May, the Cardinals called Brummer back up to St. Louis. With a 2-hit game against the Padres and a 3-hit showing against the Giants, Brummer's batting average climbed to .375 by the end of the month. When Porter returned to action, the Cardinals kept Brummer around as a third-string catcher, and he was used primarily as a late-game replacement. By the time the Cardinals faced the Giants on August 22nd, Brummer's batting average was at .268, and it had been more than a month since his last hit on July 16th. The only reason to think that Brummer might play a key role was the fact that the Cardinals bench was a player short. Dane Yorg and his wife were at the hospital celebrating the birth of their 5th child. Thanks in part to a recent 5-game winning streak, the Cardinals were 2 games ahead of the Phillies in the National League East, and Joaquin Andujar was scheduled to take the mound against the Giants. Andujar was just 9-10 on the season, but had pitched well in his last 3 starts and had a 2.78 ERA entering the game. The Giants countered Andujar with Atlee Hammaker, a 24-year-old left-hander who was 8-7 with a 4.40 ERA. The Cardinals scored first as Gene Tennis hit an RBI double and Willie McGee hit the second home run of his career to make it 3-0. The Giants rallied, however, with a 4-run 6th inning to take the lead. The Giants held that 4-3 lead until the bottom of the 9th when pinch hitter Ken Oberkfell doubled into the right field gap to tie the game. It was Oberkfell's first successful pinch hit attempt in 3 seasons with the Cardinals. I figured he was due, Cardinals manager Whitey Herzog said. Both bullpens held firm in extra innings. Brummer, who had entered the game as a pinch runner in the 8th inning and then stayed in the game at catcher, began the Cardinals' 12th inning rally with a 1-out single to left field. McGee followed with his 4th hit of the day to advance Brummer to second, and with 2 outs, Ozzie Smith bounced an infield single back to Giants pitcher Gary Lavelle to load the bases. As Lavelle began to focus on Green, Brummer realized that the Giants reliever wasn't paying him any attention at third base. Quote, I mentioned to third base coach Chuck Hiller after a couple of pitches that the pitcher wasn't paying any attention to me, Brummer said. I don't know exactly what he said. He didn't exactly say no. He didn't exactly say yes either. He didn't know what to say. I was thinking about it all the time, but I didn't want to tip it off. I took my normal lead on 3 of the pitches. On the second and third pitch, I noticed there was a lot of high leg kick to his stretch. If he has a high leg kick, he's taking some time to get rid of the ball. I got to a certain point where I knew they were not going to pick me off. I was 30 feet off. I just kept edging, slowly. When he stretched, I just went. On the 4th pitch of the at-bat, with Lavelle ahead in the count 1-2, Brummer took his chance and broke for home. David Green stepped out of the batter's box. Giants catcher Milt May stepped in front of home plate to receive the ball. And umpire David Pallone stepped to the side to see the play at the plate. Brummer was safe. I never would have thought that I'd steal home in my career, Brummer said. It's like a dream come true that a catcher would try to steal home for the St. Louis Cardinals or anybody else to win a ball game. As the Cardinals celebrated, the Giants argued that the pitch was over the plate and that Pallone had never ruled that the pitch was a ball or a strike. Pallone, however, insisted that he had called the pitch a ball. As far as I could see, the pitch was out of the strike zone, he said. If I felt like the pitch was a strike, then the inning would have been over. When he was asked where the pitch was, however, he said he didn't recall. It was somewhere out of the strike zone, he said. He wasn't even behind the plate when the ball got to the plate, Giants manager Frank Robinson said. He didn't call a ball. He didn't call anything. He's a liar. Herzog argued that since May stepped in front of the plate to receive the pitch, it must have been a ball. How can it be a strike if it never gets to the plate? He asked. After 4 hours, the game was over and Brummer had written his name into Cardinals history. I thought I had seen it all, first baseman Keith Hernandez said afterwards. I have not seen it all. I'll probably never see that again in my career. Stealing home plate with 2 strikes and 2 outs, I'll never see that again. The Cardinals went on to win the NL East with a 92-70 record, topping the Phillies by 3 games on their way to the 1982 World Championship. Brummer made 6 more appearances the rest of the way, including a start in the final game of the season. He finished the year batting .234 with 8 RBIs and 2 stolen bases and 64 at-bats. In the postseason, he didn't have any at-bats, but did play in the 9th inning of the Cardinals' 13-1 Game 6 victory. Brummer played with the Cardinals through the 1984 season, playing in 129 total games. He played the 1985 season for the Rangers, batting a career-high .278 in 121 plate appearances. He played for the Pirates' AAA affiliate in Hawaii in 1986 before retiring with 178 career games over 5 Major League seasons. And that's the story of how Glenn Brummer became a Cardinals legend. For more Cardinals history, visit stlredbirds.com or follow me on Twitter at Remembirds, REMEMBIRDS.
Brummer's the big runner. He's at third. 2 down. Sacks jammed. Lavelle at the belt. Checks. Brummer stealing home. He is safe and the Cardinals win. Brummer stole home. The dugout comes out and they congratulate him. You wouldn't believe it. Glenn Brummer.